Chapter 21. 7 Levels of Power. The small group of survivors pushed forward through what Tunga assured them was the final stretch of wild jungle before they reached a beaten path. Derek stayed silent, following the group through towering green trees, their branches draped with vines like hanging curtains. He couldn't shake the image of Elira when he told her about her grandmother's death. He had expected tears, maybe anger, but all she did was nod. Then she quietly sat by a tree, waiting for the group to start moving. The resignation in her reaction struck him like a punch to the stomach. The girl had simply accepted that she had lost the last person in the world who cared for her, as if she had expected it, as if she had already made her peace with it. What kind of world was this? And who was responsible for all this suffering? Derek clenched his armored fists. "Are you all right, Derek?" Vanda's voice was gentle but probing. "Your heart rate just spiked." "I'm fine," he muttered. "And I'd appreciate not being under constant surveillance. Can you at least suspend your mission protocols while we're resting?" "Derek, I understand that for you, this might feel like routine. But you're still trekking through a jungle full of hostile creatures, surrounded by people whose loyalty is questionable at best. You're very much still in the middle of the mission." He snorted. "Anyway," Vanda said, "does your reaction have something to do with Elira?" Damn AI. It was getting harder and harder to keep things from her. He stared at the little girl, who was now walking beside Isabel. In the absence of any other guiding figure, she seemed to have gravitated toward her, even though she remained silent. The warden was doing her best to talk to her and keep her distracted, but the girl just stared blankly and nodded every now and then. "That kid lost everyone," Derek said, "and yet she hasn't shed a single tear." "What do you think it means?" Vanda asked. "Could she be in shock? I'm not an expert in human psychological responses. And yet, sometimes, it seems as if you can read minds." Derek shook his head. "I don't know. I remember I reacted the same way. After, after the death of Professor Shinoda." Vanda's voice softened further. "That little girl has just accepted that the world is a terrible place. Bad things happen. That's all there is to it. Maybe that's for the best." "I think you're projecting your own feelings, Derek. She isn't you." He glanced over at the girl again. She was still walking beside Isabel, her expression as blank as ever, as if her spirit had slipped out of her body, searching for some other place to hide. Had he worn that same look after that damn day? He sighed. "Maybe. But that doesn't mean I'm wrong." Isabel moved closer to him. "I spoke with Tunga. We had to make several detours, and it's not easy to navigate this jungle. But he knows it well, and says we'll soon leave it behind. After a short stretch of open plains, we'll reach the main road." Derek nodded. "What can you tell me about Rothmere? How big is it?" "It's the largest city in the Narkara region. The survivors can find refuge there, and I'll be able to speak with High Priestess Uriela Valen." She lowered her voice to almost a whisper. "She'll take care of Elira, too." "How is she doing?" "How do you think?" Derek nodded. Isabel sighed. "She doesn't speak, but she glances at you now and then, when she thinks I'm not looking. I think she wants to get closer to you, but she's scared." "I can imagine," Derek said. "Wearing this armor, I probably look like some kind of monster to her." Isabel shook her head. "No, that's not it. She's 13, not 3. She knows you're not a monster. She probably just thinks you don't want her around. That's all?" His stomach twisted. Maybe he really was some kind of monster. "I get it. Look, I'm not good with kids. Actually, I'm not good with people in general. It's probably better if Elira keeps thinking that." Isabel remained silent for a moment. Only the hum of insects filled the air. After the night they'd just been through, none of the refugees seemed to be in the mood to talk. "Derek," the warden said, I've seen a lot of kids lose their parents. Accidents like Elira's happen more often than I'd like to admit. Young people are incredibly resilient. Sometimes it seems like they find the people they need on their own. Derek blinked. Hey, I see where you're going with this. But if there's one thing I'm even less suited for than being the Messiah, it's being some kind of role model or whatever. I'm a terrible example. And as you may have noticed, it's also pretty dangerous to be around me. No, Isabel. Seriously. Bad idea. I was only suggesting that maybe you could try talking to her, Isabel said. He took a deep breath. Talking to her. What the hell difference could words possibly make after everything that girl had lost? I'll try, even though it'll probably be pointless. You said that once we get to Rothmere, you'll leave Elira and the refugees in the care of High Priestess Uriella Valen, huh? Isabel nodded. Let me guess, Derek said. She's just another politician in fancy robes. He shot her a sideways glance. You're going to tell her about me, aren't you? About the Messiah thing. Does that surprise you? No. If you even have the slightest suspicion that I could be the Messiah, it makes sense you'd want to tell your boss. What worries me is how she'll react. Isabel tilted her head slightly. What do you mean? The last Messiah I heard about. Well, he was executed, nailed to a wooden cross. She shook her head. Uriella is the high priestess of this region. She is a woman of great wisdom and foresight. I trust she will do what is right, for the refugees, for Elira, and for you. I don't need her to do anything for me, except grant me access to the Citadel. You said your scholars are there, and I bet that's also where I'll find texts that could help me make sense of this whole planet-sized mess. Isabel glanced at him. Normally, you wouldn't be allowed into the Citadel unless you joined the Church of Orbisar, spent years studying, and were judged worthy as a scholar. But maybe for the Messiah, Uriella would make an exception. Derek winced. I'd rather blast my way into the Citadel with plasma than accept any kind of religious title. Damn it. I hate this stuff. A deep, gravelly voice rumbled behind him. You hate many things, metal demon. Derek turned to meet Tunga's serious gaze. The wild man leaned on his staff, the animal skull at its peak staring back at him, judgmental and unblinking. No, I don't hate many things, Derek replied, raising a finger in front of Tunga's face. Just one. The universe. Tunga let out a short snort. Isabel shook her head. The more I know you, the less you resemble a Messiah. Glad to hear it. He clicked open Nova's helmet with a hiss, and the jungle's hot breath slapped him in the face. Now, if you don't mind, I've got some urgent questions. Isabel raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Derek didn't wait. You said I don't know anything about the power of the spheres. Fine. Tell me what I'm missing. She gave him a half smile. Why don't you start by telling me what you do know? Derek looked up at the canopy above. The green leaves framed a thin strip of blue sky. Tiny specks of energy, barely visible in daylight, flickered beneath the shade of the trees. Okay, let's see, Derek said. There are these spheres that occasionally fall from the sky. If they don't get damaged, people can collect them and use their power. The spheres come in different colors, which, I guess, grant different abilities. And, oh yeah, you need a high enough auric level to use one, or the sphere's power will mess you up. Isabel nodded with a half smile. And what else do you know? Oh, yeah, right. When a sphere gets damaged upon impact, it can release its energy into the surroundings, contaminating the environment, people, animals, even plants. And most of the time, it doesn't end well. She nodded again. I would have said it differently, but yes, that's the general idea. Derek rubbed his armored hands together eagerly. Great. Now let's get to the parts I don't know. Isabel sighed. As I mentioned before, people must confirm their aura can handle a sphere's power before using it. That's why we rely on seers. Not everyone has a clear sense of their own aura, and spheres vary in power. Okay, that was a new one. Derek locked eyes with her. What do you mean by vary in power? You're talking about the different colors, right? She shook her head. No. There are 7 levels of power among the spheres, based on the metal they're made of, she said, holding up 7 fingers one at a time. Iron, bronze, silver, gold, platinum, adamantine, and then celestial spheres, which are made of pure energy. Derek blinked. The ones I've found so far were iron spheres, if I remember correctly. That means the lowest possible rank. Exactly, she said. Higher-level spheres almost never fall in this region. We don't know why. We only know that this is the will of Orbisar. Derek's mouth felt dry, as though he hadn't had water in days, despite the heavy humidity in the air. How could the incredible power he'd witnessed, enough for a wild man with a stick to rival his advanced power armor, be the lowest level? What could a bronze or silver sphere do? And what the hell could a celestial sphere do? The implications were staggering. Had he really found the treasure of all treasures? The Kolar node was a groundbreaking energy source, but these spheres, once he figured out how to apply their power to other power armors, or even to a starship, would change the entire galaxy forever. What kind of power could a battlecruiser, enhanced with a high-level sphere, possibly unleash? But the most unsettling question remained, one he still couldn't answer. How had such power remained hidden on this backwater planet for so long? Derek swallowed. For now, he needed to focus on understanding their normal functionality. From there, he could figure out how to replicate what had happened to Nova. So, how do you absorb the power of a sphere? I've only done it with my power armor, but I've never seen how a person does it. Isabel kicked aside a small branch blocking her path. Each of us has 7 energy nodes on our body called chakras, 2 in the hands, 2 in the legs, 1 in the head, 1 in the chest, and 1 in the abdomen. Those are the points where a sphere's energy can be projected. Depending on the chakra, different powers manifest. A storm of possibilities spun through Derek's mind. 7 nodes, variable input, directional output. If this worked anything like a modular interface, the number of viable combinations was off the charts. But he had just as many questions. What happens if you project a new power onto a chakra that already has one? The higher-level sphere's power will dominate that chakra, but traces of the previous power remain. This can lead to very complex and interesting interactions. We have scholars who study this. Derek frowned. Can you really mix any color with any other? Isabel shook her head firmly. You don't play games with Orbisar's magic. Some interactions cancel each other out, and others can be explosive. People have died attempting combinations they didn't understand. A chilling thought struck Derek. Have people absorbed the power of celestial spheres? Isabel's large gray eyes locked onto his for a moment, as if she were unsure whether to answer him or not. Yes, she said finally, but they are extremely rare. Only a handful of individuals have reached an aura level capable of handling such power. Can you imagine what would happen if someone lost their mind after gaining it? Derek scratched his rough beard. Then why take the risk? Why not just forbid everyone from absorbing that power? Isabel sighed. Do you think the Church hasn't already considered that? But the spheres fall where Orbisar's inscrutable will decides, and there's no way to be sure they won't end up in the wrong hands. The corner of Derek's mouth curled into a crooked smile. So that's how it is. You keep celestial-level guard dogs around to stop anyone unlucky or crazy enough to end up contaminated by that kind of power. Tunga's deep, guttural voice cut in. Top ones in Church of Orbisar. They are guard dogs. Derek stared at Tunga and nodded. So they had given the greatest power to those already at the top. That was how the church kept everyone under its control. "And where are they?" he asked Isabel. She shook her head. "They are faithful servants of the Church of Orbisar, but because of the effects their powers can have on the world and on people, they don't reveal themselves to us very often. When they need to interact with the common folk, they usually send delegates who embody their will," she said, gazing upward. "They reside in the halls of the world's major authorities. It is said that they can even leave this world and visit others in the sky." Derek was starting to get a pretty clear picture of the organization. Someone with the power of the celestial spheres had built an entire religion and ruled this world with an iron grip. "What's the name of the big boss running this whole circus?" Isabel frowned. "If you're referring to our religious leader, his name is Divine Chancellor Luthiel Othran. But I can't tell you much about him. It's been many years since he last appeared in person, and I was just a child at the time." Derek nodded. At least he didn't have to worry about running into Pope Superman while strolling through a city. "You not tell him all," Tunga said, his voice low and rough. "You talk only of people. But forget plants. Forget beasts." Derek glanced at Isabel, who avoided his gaze, then turned to Tunga. "What are you talking about?" "The spheres," Tunga said. "When fall, sometimes break, or stay in ground, slowly leaking power if no one take them. Wherever energy spread, change land, change beast. Animals, plants, they have no aura, no way to hold sphere power. Almost always go mad." "The Mbawala," Derek said, "the plant that attacked us last night." Tunga nodded slowly. A horrifying thought struck Derek, and he felt the ground shift beneath him. If the creatures I've met so far are the result of contamination from low-level iron spheres, what happens if one of the more powerful spheres breaks? Isabel stared at him in silence. "A beast," Tunga said, his voice heavy. "When take power of celestial sphere, grow big like mountain, can destroy whole jungle before anyone stop it." He swallowed hard. Despite being equipped with the most advanced power armor in the galaxy, Derek suddenly felt as small as an insect. If he really wanted to survive long enough to recover not just the Kalar node, but also a valuable stash of spheres to study, he needed to upgrade Nova as soon as possible. He needed to turn Nova into something even this planet would be scared of. A roar filled the air, a roar so deep it made the trees tremble and the ground quake beneath his feet.